Hallelujah! Once again, welcome to Jesus and You. This time we're going to be talking about end times, or there's a whole study on it called Escatology. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is because I've got a friend that was saying, oh, what's going to happen at the, and it's like, why isn't it taught in church? And then we get into things like, when is the rapture going to happen? Now, the rapture, if you look in the Bible, you're not going to see the word rapture. But you will see a catching up in 1 Thessalonians 4. Now, the thing about what is happening, just because we get caught up to be with Jesus, assuming it happens early on, doesn't mean that that's the end. So I'm going to try to go on beyond that. So first of all, how do we know that we may be in the end times? Because if you look at the Apostle Paul, he was talking about way back when he thought he was in the end times. So first of all, let's look at 2 Timothy 3. But know this, that in the last days perilous times will come. For men will be lovers of themselves, that's happening. Lovers of money, that's happening. Boasters, proud, blasphemous, disobedient to parents, happening all the time. Unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. How many churches, they don't even talk about having the power in the church. And from such people turn away. Jesus was asked, what's going to happen? What will be the sign of your return? And in Matthew 24, I'm not going to read it, and also in Luke 21, look up, read it for yourself, what Jesus said would be happening at the end. So, let's go. As we continue on in life, there will become a time that let's look at all four of the ideas as far as when the rapture would happen. It goes rapture, and then the Antichrist will come on the scene. So what is the Antichrist? The one who is against Christ, but everybody in a one-world government would be following him, and whatever he says goes. And it's like, how can you have everything controlled by one person? Well, if you look at what's happening with AI, and you look at what they can do with taking all the information of everybody on Earth, that's 8 billion people. That's a whole lot of people to keep track of. Can they do it? Absolutely. They can tell if you cross the street illegally. It's happening in China, where they've got a social score that if you cross the road and you're doing it illegally, it's going to show up in their computer, and it would go onto your record so that it's time for a vacation. And they said, let's take a look at your social score. No, we're not allowing you to go on vacation. It's that type of thing that's starting to happen worldwide. So, who is the one that truly, truly wants one world government? Satan. So, Jesus is still in control, but I'll show you what happens with all that coming up. Okay, so there's going to be a tribulation period. It's 7 years. Now, what I'm trying to do is get through the book of Revelation, but the problem with Revelation, you can't read it by itself, and it's not easy to understand. There's a whole lot of analogies and everything else. There's cups, there's bowls, angels are pouring things out, and it's like, what does this mean? So you've got to go to the book of Daniel, and there's parts of Daniel that talk about what's happening. We take a look at Ezekiel. I just read from 2 Timothy. So let's get back to, as things progress and things seem to be getting worse and worse, there will come a time when there is a one world government and there's one man in control. And what will happen with him is that he will have a peace treaty with Israel, and then what happens after that, after the first 3.5 years of peace, where everybody loves him, then he exposes himself for who he really is. And he goes into the temple, which is not built yet, coming soon. I'll get into that in a minute. And then once he gets into the temple to say, I am God, then for the next 3.5 years, it's nothing but sheer hell. In the Bible, both what Jesus said, what Luke 21 said, again, Jesus speaking, is that all hell is going to break loose. The book of Revelation talks about so many people dying and so forth. So, one way of looking at it is we are going to get taken up. Jesus is coming back. And is there anything preventing Jesus from coming back before we ever hear or see anything about the Antichrist? Not really. It says that the gospel shall be preached everywhere. Well, it is and it's not. So let's go ahead, and just because we get taken up, that's not the end of it. So what happens is, let's say it happens before the tribulation, because that seems to be, most people are thinking that's what's going to happen. That Jesus comes back in the clouds, there's a trump or trumpet that blows, and all of a sudden everybody who's a believer goes up into the sky with Jesus, and they disappear with him. I gather to heaven. It doesn't really say. It just says caught up and taken away. So, I have studied this for many, many years, and there are scriptures that say it's going to happen definitely before the tribulation. There's just as many scriptures that say it's going to happen during the tribulation, because there's a lot of things that even Jesus said, you will be caught up, not to go into the sky, but they would capture you, they would hate you for my name's sake, and horrible things would happen to the believers. So that's another possibility. We might have to go through some troubles. There's other scriptures that say it sure looks like we're going to have to go through the whole tribulation. That's generally not what most people believe. And I was with a pastor who said, oh, look at this and read it this way, everything has already happened. So back when Jesus died, all this stuff, read it and you will see it's already done. But for the most part, most people believe the rapture is going to happen probably in our lifetime. I am believing it in my lifetime, and I'm probably a whole lot older than you are. So the rapture happens, we go up with Jesus, and then along comes the Antichrist, and we go through this whole thing that in order for him to be in the temple saying, I am God, there has to be a temple. So, do your research, find out what the latest is with rebuilding the third temple. Just type in third temple. And you will see the biggest problem with the third temple is the fact that there's so many that believe on the Temple Mount, where the Dome of the Rock is, where that is like a holy site for the Muslims. There's no way that they're going to agree to having another temple from the Christians or from the Jews, and it would be very similar to sacrifices of animals and everything that they had way back when there was a second temple of Solomon. So let's get on to, let's assume that here we are, we go up with Jesus, we are taken away for at least 7 years. And then there is another time when we supposedly come back with Jesus, and who's the we? I'm not sure, because the Bible is a little sketchy as far as who's coming back for the 1,000-year reign. Jesus comes back to earth, and he will be in Israel. He will be the king of the Jews. Most of the Jews will start to believe in their Messiah. Most of the Jews will get saved, and on and on. So that's for 1,000 years. During that time, Satan will be locked up. He will be in hell or wherever, and he will not get out. At the end of the 1,000 years, he will be released for a little bit before he's totally destroyed in the lake of fire. Now, what happens during that 1,000-year reign? Are there people that are still living? It appears to be. Are there those of us who may have gone up with Jesus? We have glorified bodies and we never die. So during the whole 1,000 years, we'd still be here with Jesus, and he's got the glorified body. So again, nobody's totally sure with that. Now, at the end of the 1,000 years, that's not it either, because after that, the New Jerusalem that's talked about in Revelation, think of it as a huge box. It is like 1,000 miles wide, 1,000 miles long, and 1,000 miles high. You can put a lot of people in that box. So that's the New Jerusalem that is more like heaven, like the third heaven, and that comes down, and all the believers will go into that. And at that point, I guess it's the end of the earth, because we don't need it anymore. So hopefully that will help clear up a little bit of this. So blessings to you, and If you've got any questions, feel free to contact me. God bless you.